Good evening, everyone. It is December 17th, 2024, and we're here with the Athens-Clarke County Mayor and Commission for two meetings this evening for a brief special called session, which we'll consider two items, and then our regularly scheduled agenda-setting meeting. I'll begin with our civility pledge, which has been provided to us by the Georgia Municipal Association. In adopting this, we pledge that the way we govern ourselves is often as important as the positions we take. Our collective decisions will be better when differing views have had the opportunity to be fully vetted and considered, that all people have the right to be treated with respect, courtesy, and openness, that we value all input, and we commit to conduct ourselves at all times with civility and courtesy to each other. And we'll begin our formal activity tonight with a roll call from the clerk.
Davenport.
Here.
Link. Here. Taylor. Here. Wright.
Present.
Fisher.
Here.
Poole.
Here.
Culpepper.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Thornton. Hamby. Here. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're here tonight to consider a resolution supporting ranked choice voting in local elections, as well as appointments to various boards, authorities, and commissions. We have public input on these two items of old and new business, and public input will be conducted the same way for the old and new business that we have on the special called session, as well as the consent agenda and the old and new business on the consent agenda. There's a light in front of the clerk, and for every 3-minute opportunity that you have to speak on one of these items, you will see the light turn green when you begin speaking, yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and red when your 3-minute opportunity has expired. And I'll thank you for your time. If you do provide public input, please make sure to give us your full name and just your place of residence. So is there anyone who would like to provide public input on the two items on the special called session agenda? Good evening.
My name is Brian Gomez. I live at 490 Barnett Shoals Road in Commissioner Myers' district, and I'm here to call for your support for the ranked choice voting resolution tonight. Certainly by now you've heard the benefits of ranked choice voting, and I support it because I think it reflects the values that we all aspire to in our elections, right? We want elections that are fair, that are maximally representative, that are efficient, and ranked choice voting accomplishes all of that. You've also heard that ranked choice voting promotes consensus building among candidates. You've heard that it minimizes the need for costly runoff elections that oftentimes have low voter turnout. But listening to the last mayor and commission meeting, what I heard from some of you all was that you maybe wanted to hear some of how ranked choice voting might actually be implemented in Athens-Clarke County, how it might impact what we do here in Athens. The reality is I don't think we're ever going to have a good answer to that until we have the opportunity to test it, right? I can wax and wane poetic about the theoretical benefits. We all can do theoretical analyses of how ranked choice voting may have affected past elections, how it may impact future elections. The reason I think this resolution and its language is important is because it says, hey, we want the opportunity to have this as a choice. We want the option of choosing what voting method works best for us, and we think other local governments should have that method too. It's only when the state of Georgia recognizes that ability and once we're granted that authority to test ranked choice voting and use ranked choice voting as a viable voting method that we'll actually know if it works well for us here and if it works well for other local governments in Georgia. This resolution doesn't call for ranked choice voting to be mandatory. It does not call for every local government in the state to adopt it. It just says it would be great if this was an option. Maybe one day Georgia allows it to be an option, we test it out, and we realize it's not for us, and that's okay. But by then, we will have at least had the opportunity of tried it, have some data to back up our future actions, and then move forward in a way that's best for our citizens. And even if ranked choice voting doesn't work well for us here in Athens, maybe it works well for a different local government in the state. We do not live in isolation here in Athens. We are a product of the larger state of Georgia. And I think even if ranked choice voting doesn't work for us here, fairer, more efficient elections elsewhere in Georgia and other local cities and other local counties is still a win for us. We're a product of the state, and so good, fair elections are vital, not just here, but everywhere. And I think this resolution calls for that movement for the state of Georgia at large. So I encourage you all to vote yes and in favor of this resolution, and I appreciate your attention to the matter over the past couple of weeks. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Is there anyone else here to speak to old or new business on the consent agenda, or excuse me, on the special called session agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move to commission action. Again, the first item is an old business item that was continued from earlier in the month. This is a resolution supporting ranked choice voting in local elections as an option to be provided to local governments by the state of Georgia. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, now I have a motion from Commissioner Link, and I have a second from Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Link, any remarks?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make it clear, this is us just saying to the state legislative body, you know, could we possibly have this option? And if they were to follow through on that and allow that for local governments, then we would go through a complex democratic procedure involving our Board of Elections and then probably even a countywide referendum, I would think. So yeah, this is just like an early inkling of weighing some opinion on this prospect.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I second that, and thank Brian for coming down and speaking. Good to have representation from the east side. And wanted to say also, I know people are sometimes will say, well, if this is just Athens-Clarke County, what difference that'll make? And in fact, if it is just Athens-Clarke County, it probably won't make a difference. But if there are other municipalities that have already passed resolutions, and as more are there, we become part of a critical mass to get the state legislature to at least pay attention to this and consider this moving forward. I just reiterate again that for the public and for myself, that we're not voting for ranked choice voting, but voting on a resolution that would communicate to our state legislators that we are interested in pursuing this and having municipalities have the option, we're pursuing the option to vote on this locally. And we, of course, would do more information, gather more information and public support later on. It's clear in some of the information we have that, you know, we all know it from personal experience of other people here in the county, how when there are runoffs, the numbers drop so low for those runoffs. So this would allow a way to have more people actually in the decision-making process.
Any other remarks? Commissioner Fisher?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Brian, for coming down tonight. I'm going to vote no on this ranked choice voting for several reasons. We got information today from our acting county manager. You know, when we look at trying to either pass resolutions or try to figure out what we want to do, we have not polled or surveyed the public locally about how they feel about that. Secondly, we don't know what the startup costs to do that. And as much problems that we have had with voting in the past, why confuse our public locally, especially if you got an election that's going on where we got major candidates that's on the ballot, and then we got ranked choice voting. I think that's confused our local population. I think we really need to take a look and do some more study. One of the things I think the Board of Elections have not had an opportunity to even take a look at this. And I think one of the Board of Elections members said, you know, why pass something when we had not even had an opportunity to review it, to study it, and see whether or not it fits this community. And the fourth thing I want to emphasize, how many other counties in the state of Georgia that has considered ranked choice voting? We don't know that. We know we had some states around the country that had ranked choice voting, and they did away with them. So I do agree. We need to find how we eliminate runoffs, and I agree with that. I think it would be nice if we can eliminate runoff. Right now, this is not the time to consider this. We really need to do a deep dive into this and really find out what our community thinks. Sometimes as elected officials, we think we know what's best for our community. Well, in this case, I don't think we do. We need to make sure that our community are comfortable with this. We need to educate them and understand what's going to be the impact and how would this, you know, help our community better when it comes to voting. So for me, until we get some more information and do a deep dive into this and really let the Board of Election take a look at it, I can't support this resolution moving forward.
Any other remarks? Commissioner Thornton?
I'm sorry I'm late, but I look like I'm right on time. I appreciate staff, and I know information got out late about ranked choice voting. And I heard the concerns, and I wish we could have waited until next year for a deeper dive. But here it is before us. The advantage that I have over some of my colleagues is that I was into what ranked voting back in the 90s, and it really didn't go as it should have, but the concept is more democratic. I think that there's more opportunity for people to get educated, but I do think making a statement on my part, and I guess, again, I've experienced ranked choice voting. I've worked with it. I've seen it. I know it would be an asset. The concerns that my fellow Commissioner Fisher has, all of that is legitimate concerns. I guess, again, I'm voting for this tonight because of my experience. I do think it does force us to have conversations now. If this did not come before us, we wouldn't even be talking about it. At least now it's on the table, whether it passes or doesn't pass. I do think it's opened the door for a conversation. But I'm going to support it just because of my personal experience. And I think it is a statement, and I just found out today, I think my colleague Wright told me that the Senate didn't pass it before. I did not even know that. But just because the Senate didn't pass it doesn't mean it ain't a good idea. So I do think that I will support it, but I'm not only going to support this, I want to keep working towards this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Houle?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I plan to support this today. I think some good points have been raised about how this doesn't commit us to doing it. It just opens up the door for the possibility if the state chooses to heed our request of them. But I did just want to emphasize a few reasons why I do currently think ranked choice voting is a good idea. We got a memo from staff today that outlined the costs of our runoff elections, and since 2020, so just in the last handful of years, we spent $537,235 on runoff elections. So $500,000, a little over $500,000. I think there are better ways we could spend a little over $500,000. As far as the concerns around how to incorporate ranked choice voting ballots into the policies and procedures, I think it's worth noting that after COVID, our own state legislature did enact legislation that included ranked choice voting for overseas and military personnel. So we're already doing it for some people's ballots, and the state has already seen some merit in it for that reason. So again, I appreciate the desire to do more of a deep dive, and hopefully if this moves forward, we have a chance to do more of that deep dive before we decide to commit to it. But there are, enormous cost savings, and when we think about educating the public, I bet we could spend only a fraction of that $500,000 and do some pretty good public education while we get the vote out there. We did get a concern from one of our Board of Elections members relayed to us about, the low, the need for maybe some of those overseas ballots to get some more education too, because they're often just selecting one person. But I think it is worth noting that right now in our current system, you can only ever select one person, so it's not like anyone's missing out on their ability to vote if they're not ranking the candidates. Yeah, I do hope that we can move forward on this for those reasons. I also think it's important to note the democracy component of this. We have much higher turnouts in the initial elections than we do in the runoffs. And so if we're really thinking of electing people who represent the people, I think we want the most people possible to participate. And this enables us for lower costs to have a far greater turnout. Our most recent Board of Elections runoff is a great example of that. Thanks.
Any further remarks from the body? Commissioner Davenport.
So thank you. First of all, I want to thank staff and all for responding to the email. I'm still going to support this, but I do just in case, I see that Isabella's not here, but just in case if this does not pass, the complexities of some of the boards that we have, like the Board of Elections is a state entity. we elect the board, well, we elect the board itself to oversee, state laws, and sometimes the complexities of those boards kind of go over me. And thanks to the emails that we received about SB 355 and how some of the people on the board felt that it was a shock to them, that I would just recommend that when it comes to complexities like the Board of Elections, that anything that we decide on should be ran through them first, because they are the ones who we elect or select to manage our Board of Elections, and those are the ones who are governed by state law to carry those through. And unfortunately, I missed that in the first go around, but I'm still going to support this. But just in the future, if this does not pass, run it through the Board of Elections. That's what they're there to do, and understand what laws that the state of Georgia has implemented or have tried to enact, so we can be better decision makers down the road. But I still support ranked choice voting, all the studies I've done, but just in the future, I'll do a better job in just making sure that when it comes to complexities like this, that the people who actually do the job are vetted first. Thank you.
Any others? All right, we'll do a roll call vote, beginning with Commissioner Link, who provided the motion.
Yes.
Taylor?
No.
Wright?
Nope.
Fisher?
No.
Poole?
Yes.
Culpepper?
No.
Myers?
Yes.
Thornton?
Yes.
Hamby?
No.
No.
Davenport?
Oh, Davenport?
Yes.
5 yes and 5 no.
Oh, that's all right. I support this measure. This is an opportunity for us to do that next level of exploration, certainly with the benefit of both global and national opportunities that have already been taken by utilizing ranked choice voting. And as certainly has been noted in prior comments, the process of runoff elections both diminish democracy and cost a lot of money. So anything that we can do that enhances democracy and costs less money, I think is a good thing. So I'd vote to support this. All right, we now are moving on to our single item of new business. We have to consider this under suspension of rules. So can someone make a motion for suspension of rules? All right, got Commissioner Link and Commissioner Fisher. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, you have in front of you a nominating report. Would somebody like to make a motion for approval of this report?
Second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Taylor and a second from Commissioner Link. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All these folks, we appreciate very much for their interest in serving in a volunteer capacity with this community and this unified government. And we certainly appreciate all those who applied that weren't selected to, which includes a lot of very competent and qualified folks who I certainly hope will reapply the next time we have an opportunity, which is going to be about April timeframe. So just very briefly, we have named to the Industrial Development Authority, Kimberly Matthews, to the Library Board, Haley Cox, Jonathan Kirkpatrick, and Nicole Klein, to the Board of Elections, Adam Shirley and Mary Riley, to the Board of Tax Assessors, Sinead Kadir, to the Historic Preservation Commission, Lauren Olaf, to the Hospital Authority of Athens-Clarke County, Lindsay Reed, Henry Gerard, and Lakeisha Gant, and to the Vision Committee, Zachary Crew and Eleanor Swenson. So appreciate all those folks, and all of them, as well as folks who did not receive an appointment this go-round, will be getting a letter from us just in the next week or so. So now is time when we can adjourn from our special called session. Do I hear
Move
such
to
a motion?
adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, motion carries. All right. We're going to move now to our agenda setting session. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. For public input, would any commissioner like to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move to public input on the three
I
items.
want to remove number one, please, just for quick discussion.
All right, Commissioner Link will remove number one. All right, would any member of the public like to speak to the other two items on the consent agenda? Those are items 2 and 3. All right, we'll go ahead and move to our new business, and so that is items 1 and 4 through 11. Would any member of the public like to speak to new business? Again, that's 1 and 4 through 11. All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move to commission discussion. Commissioner Link, you asked that item 1, this all-way yield at Boulevard and Nacoochee, be removed. Any
Yeah,
questions or remarks?
I'd like to keep it on, off consent for now, because I don't believe the word has really gotten out in the neighborhood about this. We did have a meeting a month or so ago. A whole bunch of folks from Boulevard showed up to talk about traffic issues in the neighborhood, particularly as it pertains to morning traffic when kids are trying to walk to Burks Elementary. And this traffic circle is an issue because a lot of people are treating it as a roundabout. And also there is no proper crosswalk at the intersection. So staff took a look at it and has come up with a proposal to turn it into more of a proper roundabout with yield signs on the Boulevard side. So I just want to make sure that the word gets out throughout the neighborhood, folks can weigh in, we can share the design, and there might be, I might even come up with a CDO, if there are any tweaks that it might need.
Sounds good. Any further input on item 1? All right, we're going to go ahead and move to item 4. This is the Newton Bridge Road TAD Advisory Committee Community Identified Priority List.
Consent.
Dexter.
Any other input on this
I did have a question.
or question?
Yeah, oh, sorry. I just was, in this, the TAD funds is a long report from the TAD committee, and it advised to use TAD funds to pay off ACC-initiated debt bonds for the projects in there. Is that something is that a possibility for something we can do on something like this?
Yes, the answer is yes, to use the TAD funds to pay off a bond.
But
But, exactly. One, I think that we would need to understand what we're talking about first and foremost, and, as far as the cost of all of these things. And that's important because the revenue bond is going to be tied to the total cost of whatever it is you want
Right,
to do.
right.
And we have to make sure the TAD funds can cover the annual payment of those revenue bonds.
And so all I guess I would like to know that that was brought up several times by the TAD committee as a recommendation to consider. And so since I'm asking about it and have questions about it, I just want to make sure that that's something where the consequences of which are explained to the TAD committees, because that was a big recommendation of theirs.
Certainly.
And, to that point, Commissioner, I'm going to leave this off consent because what I'd like to do is work with staff to include another line item for commission consideration that pursues this set of safety and access recommendations. The real benefit of the public sector part of TAD activity is that you can create an environment that's going to be better for the public, and given these recommendations, that better means better access for the kids who live in Rolling Ridge and the kids who live on Vincent Drive, and anybody who wants to get to Holland Youth Sports Complex, and anybody who wants to get into town, and anyone who just wants a safer corridor. And what I can attest to as a parent who's probably driven this corridor 10,000 times, taking a kid to the ballpark, is not optimally safe. And we certainly could do something about that. So really in brief, what I'll be asking the commission to consider beyond this is, first, can we get an on-call consultant to essentially set up the kind of graphic that you see later in your agenda around Lexington Road, where we're saying, here's how all of these things would dovetail together. We, of course, benefit from having had a lot of support from the Georgia Department of Transportation on Chase Street with forthcoming activity there, and from the voters with the SPLOST and TSPLOST package, where we're going to have upgrades on Barber Street. And this would really be the third leg of improvements that we already have underway. And then beyond that, what I would ask staff to do is bring back to us some funding opportunities, as you would see in your budget book, and as I think the committee noted. Even currently, with just the improvements that were in place on January 1st of this year, the TAD throws off over $200,000 a year. And so over 15 years, that's $3 million. And the bond is one way to borrow funds for a local government. Generally, you're not going to bond finance until you're really talking about something in the 10 million plus range. But there's traditional borrowing, and there's also internal borrowing. It's typical that we've got several $1 million sitting in SPLOST and TSPLOST programs that are as yet unspent because we're waiting for those to continue to accumulate. So internal borrowing is an option too. So those are the kind of things that I'd like to see us do, because of course we got a great program here and we want to use it.
But we also want to talk about, if we're going to do any type of internal borrowing or something, there's projects in everybody's districts that could happen for. So just because this one is listed here doesn't necessarily mean there's got to be a priority list for that as well. Just because this one's on the agenda doesn't mean it rises to the top of the priority list just because of that. And certainly, when we start talking about different funding mechanisms, when you go to bonding, if we don't have the money to pay for it until it gets built, we're in trouble, as we've seen from bonds as of late. So I'd be very careful of that for not only this project, but for some other projects that may be in discussions.
And fortunately, one of the things that all of you will see is forthcoming recommendations in each of these TAD districts. And so you'll have a similar opportunity for all of those. That's just the way the mechanism's built. Commissioner Thornton.
Again, I had to step out for again a minute, but the priority list is basically what the advisory committee came up with, not like it just jumps in front of everybody or does anything. That's still based on that TAD district, right?
That's correct. This is specific to that district.
So, okay, all right.
But each item would have to be voted on by us anyway. It's just accepting what the TAD committee said, so it doesn't bind us to doing that list.
And that's correct. So this would be the second time that the commission has seen the priority list. The first priority list the commission saw was the East Downtown priority list. And so y'all voted on the priorities, and if they wanted to do a project we discussed, that project would still have to come back to the commission.
And even when, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Thornton, follow up, and then I'll get Commissioner Fisher.
And even, I think Commissioner Taylor made some minor changes on her list. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're not confusing, taking bonds from somewhere else. And I know it confuses me, but we're still talking about the TAD dollars in that particular TAD district.
Exactly. Commissioner Fisher?
And Mayor, I do agree with you, because I know 2 years ago I mentioned, especially from a connectivity piece, that we were trying to connect from Chase to Barber to Newton Bridge and the traffic calming. We have had, I think, to my recollection, 4 fatalities there at the Capwood and Newton Bridge intersection. And I've talked to PTW about red lights and some other stuff there, so all those things will come into play. And to my colleague, Commissioner Hamby, I want to be mindful of that too, that, whatever funding that we use, that, we be able to afford to pay for it and make sure that it's going to be viable. But I do think that's a district, and you and I talked about this, Mayor, that it's a growing district, and actually we just found out part of, I thought was my district, is actually Commissioner Thornton's district.
I'm so excited.
German Times, we looked at the map again, in the German Times, I guess what I found out, that the right side of Newton Bridge Road is District 9, the left side is District 5. So but at the same time, we want to work in conjunction to make sure we get those safety features there and make sure that, all those young people have access to Holland Park and either sidewalks or whatever we decide to do from this. So.
Commissioner Thornton.
First of all, I want to say that I am so excited that this Newton Bridge TAD proposal is infrastructure. Finally, somebody's talking my language about infrastructure. Now, I may have misunderstood Commissioner Hamby's point of view since I stepped out. Anything that comes back to us, though, we still got to vote on it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my point is, there was an objection about it going on consent? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, what I was suggesting is that, given that we could have an additional directive to staff, that we would leave it off consent so that we could craft that.
I personally think it should go on consent, but I'll go with the vote.
All right, any others? All right, moving on. Item 5 is the SPLOST 2020 project, space modernization, and this is for renovations of the existing courthouse to include the elevator shafts, HVAC, and some other things that would have to be in place regardless of the end user.
Consent.
Commissioner Davenport?
So I would like to put this, not on consent, but just ask some question. So are there any latest updates on the courthouse and working with, I think it's GMA or whoever it is, not GMA, General Service Administration, but so with the space allocation, we had designated, I believe, $10 million, correct? $7 million? I'm looking at something.
It's about 70.
It's in the agenda.
Well, just for the renovating the courthouse, I just want to make sure that even though we're band-aiding the courthouse now, what expenses should we expect when we finally move into that courthouse for the county?
So of the $4.5 million that's proposed in this sub-project, the vast majority of these improvements are things that would need to be done as it's converted to an administrative building. The two that probably don't carry the most longevity would be security improvements and space modifications, and those are really probably a Band-Aid on a Band-Aid. It's really just to keep it functioning as it is. So as far as what would be left, this comes out of what was designated for the courthouse, and I believe it shows $4.69 million would be available. I think, as we've discussed, generally this project is just going to be short of money, period.
Okay.
And so this might be something that would appear, knowing that we got to build a judicial center first before we can do anything too creative to our friends in the courts. This might be something that you would see appear on a future SPLOST initiative referendum, or will certainly be talked and discussed as part of our space allocation assessment.
Consent?
That's what I said.
Everybody agree with consent? Follow
I
up,
do.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I was looking at the facts and issues number 6, and there's two things I wanted to clarify. One is that, first of all, it says in here, because of the scope of this, that it's being, staff request approval to move directly and to initiate the bid and award phase upon approval of the proposed project concept without further review and approval of schematic phase. But it would be coming back to us to approve the contract for that work. And then, yeah.
Generally, no. So, for example, you all have already approved the emergency procurement of the elevators,
Right.
so this covers that. Much of this work is either tied to some existing improvements or done under a state contract or an on-call contract. However, if there was procurement being done in the excess of 200,000 not under those contracts, those certainly would return to the commission for consideration.
Okay, and that's fine, that clears it up for me. And then the second part, the second sentence in there says, "It is anticipated that the award of this work will exceed the staff approval thresholds, and contract awards will be presented to the mayor and commission for approval in accordance with established procedures." And you're saying if it goes over that threshold, the 200,000, or maybe, is that what that's referring to there?
Yes.
Okay. So if it goes over the budget that's laid out here, it would come back for our approval if it's over the 200,000?
Yeah, so for example, the generator line item in there is around $300,000. More often than not, that would be something that would be presented to you all as a standalone option, as a procurement activity and an agenda item.
Okay.
On the other hand, the chiller controls, which is more than just the electronics, it's fans and pumps and so on, that aligns with a chiller procurement that's already been initiated. So you typically aren't going to separate the controls from the company that's installed the chiller because you want it all to work as a unit. And so that would normally be done under a procurement with one of our existing contracts.
So what we're approving here is going to make it all happen sooner in the
Yes,
end? That's good.
absolutely.
Any other questions? Consent, okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, 5 is on consent. All right, moving on to 6. This is the proposed schematic design for the new Recovered Materials Processing Facility, or MRF for short.
Consent?
Consent.
Everybody good with consent? All right. All right, 6 is going to go on.
Mayor, I'm fine with the consent, but I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On here, because it's being built with the, the roof that can have solar on it. At which point would we be looking into whether or not we want to fund solar on that? Would that be down the line at the construction phase? Like if we wanted to take money from the Renewable Energy SPLOST program, would that come?
You got it.
Okay, good. Great.
All right, so 6 is on consent. 7 is the Sycamore Drive pedestrian improvements.
Consent?
Pretty good. All right, consent it is.
I see that.
All right. 8 is the Lexington Road improvements, the design service contract award. We discussed this prior in its component pieces.
Say it,
Any-
Santa. Consent?
All right. All right. Had pretty lengthy conversations about each of those components. 9 is the East Washington Street Construction and Environmental Mitigation Plan for the park that's about 40 feet from where we're sitting right now.
Who put that on
Consent?
consent?
Yeah, let's put it on there.
Very, very excited about this, I will say.
It's a good thing.
Looking forward to seeing it coming out of the ground. All right.
Wastewater
Item
project.
10 is the FY '25 Housing Counseling Funding Recommendations. There are 2 organizations and dollar amounts here.
Consent?
Commissioner Myers?
I do have a question on it. Those are, there's more money, and I assume that there were only 2 applicants, the Land Trust and East Athens Development, for this council program funding. And we talk a lot about outcomes, and there's nothing in the agenda report about outcomes from previous funding, and I guess based on everything we've been doing in the last couple of years and our emphasis on outcomes, it would be good to, just as a standard, see some outcomes from the previous work that's been done in this area. Could we get that and leave it off consent until we see that?
I agree with Myers.
I think we have seen something like that, if I'm
Well,
not
it's
mistaken.
not on
because-
this agenda report.
Are you saying you want to see outcomes of, for example, number of people served by each?
Yeah,
sure.
right, and how many, I just would like to see that, yeah. And we'll leave it off, give me the information, we can put it on consent, and I can pull it off if I have questions.
You want information on past performance
How many people
measures?
have gone through the
Certainly.
programs, and how many people have gotten housing with this? And I think, just as a standard thing, we want to know that from all of these programs.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see that information as well. And I'm thankful to see this going forward. We added this to our budget, this funding, because we did hear from some of these organizations about the tremendous need for this counseling and how folks can't even qualify for some of these federal loan programs unless they go through these kind of programs. So I think that hopefully we can get quite a few more residents in owner-occupied homes and build that wealth.
Commissioner Thornton?
While we're getting some more information, can we get a report on First American, the housing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
If you could put that with this, that would probably be very helpful for me.
Yeah.
What was that, Commissioner Thornton?
First American.
First American Bank Program.
Down
yes,
payment
yes.
assistance, yeah.
Yeah, that we've already awarded. Perfect.
I'm grateful to see this housing counseling funds be on the consent agenda, because when I seen it come up on my email, I got to calling like, hey, make sure y'all apply for these funds, because it's very important that our constituents have the opportunity to own the houses that they live in. And I do think both of these organizations do great work. I will be accusing myself from voting, but that's my business. No, I'm joking. But I am grateful to see the initiatives that this body has put forth so that our residents do have the opportunity for generational wealth. So, great work, staff and teammates.
All right. Item number 11
Consent?
On consent.
is
I do,
funds for Hawthorne.
I just, this might be a shame, you have a question.
Question, Commissioner Fisher.
So, and I guess I missed it, that area, again, from a traffic perspective, is a dangerous, very dangerous intersection when you're trying to turn left and right, can't see cars coming. I'm anxious to know, though, how soon that we may get started on this particular project, because I think it's critical about what's going on there. And the traffic has continued to back up at certain times of the day, and it is a very dangerous intersection trying to turn.
We can certainly provide that information in the follow-up report. If you'll remember, though, at the prior meeting, y'all voted on the planning grant for
Right.
this particular corridor, which is a big deal. And then this is subsequent funding for the construction at the intersection only. I was just talking to the TPW staff about that, and I don't want to give you the wrong information, so let me report back to you, Brian.
And, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions about that one? All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. All right. Thank you all. Happy holidays.